I'm really honored to be invited to this superb conference on the pharmacoepidemiology, which is quite new to me as a gastroenterologist. I've been to some of the sessions this morning. I really learned quite a lot about in this field. Today I would like to present some of our work, but mainly have an overview of the prokinetic agents, which as a gastroenterologist we use very often, and about the current research of those prokinetic agents. In particular, I'll be focused on the drug safety concerns for those prokinetic agents. As we all know that dyspepsia is one of the most common GI disorders or symptoms in our clinical practice, and therefore the prokinetic agents which promote the motility of our GI tract will be widely used. As the development history, the first prokinetic agents was developed in 1960s as the synthesis of metoclopramide, and in the 1980s, Domperidone was developed and also entered the market in the US. And in the late 1980s, the drug called Cisapride also was listed in Europe, in Belgium, and also Mosapride, another kind of the prokinetic agents, was listed in Japan, and almost the same time, the Extrapyramidal was listed in the UK. I think in this field, there's quite a number of agents was under development, but there's not very many successfully being on the market. If we look at this mechanism of those market, the prokinetic agents, we can see that almost all of the prokinetic agents were targeted on the neuron in the GI wall. As you can see here, the metoclopramide and also domperidone was the antagonist for the dopamine D2 receptor, and the Mosapride as well as the Cisapride was the agonist for the serotonin 5-HT4 receptor, and for Extrapyramidal, it can not only block the dopamine D2 receptor, but also inhibit the acetylcholine esterase as well. And another newly developed agent called the Trimebutine is the dual role of the both stimulator as well as the antagonist for the opioid receptors, both for the kappa and the mu. So if we classify those prokinetic agents in the clinic, we would call metoclopramide as the first generation of prokinetic agent, and the second generation would be Domperidone, which has been already on the market for over 30 years. And the third generation would be the Cisapride, and the fourth generation would be the Mosapride. And even newly developed agents called Etopride and Trimebutine as well. But if we consider pharmacologically, those prokinetic agents would be the dopamine receptor blockers or 5-HT receptor agonist, morphine receptor agonist, and the acetylcholine esterase inhibitor or opioid receptor agonist. So these are the general view of the prokinetic agents. As they all to work as neural cells receptor agonist or antagonist. So we would expect some side effect from the inhibition or stimulation of those receptors. In fact, we do have the adverse reactions. For example, for the metoclopramide, it's mainly the extrapyramidal symptoms. For domperidone, which will be discussed later on, about the mild central nervous system adverse effect, and also possible cardiac toxicity. For Cisapride, we all know that due to the QT interval prolongation, which caused the severe heart attack or cardiac death, this drug was already withdrawn from the U.S. in the year 2000. And for the Mosapride is fairly safe. There's not much of the prolongation of a QT interval or the ventricular arrhythmia was reported. For the Etopride, it may be safer because it's independent of the cycloram P450 and well tolerated by the patients. And also for the Trimebutine has also got a high safety profile. So if we look at the current research on those kinetic agents by searching the clinical trial a website, we would find that for the metoclopramide, you would get over 100 clinical trials worldwide, and this is most of the research were about the GI motility, like the gastroparesis, gastroesophageal reflux diseases, and also ingestion, etc. But also you would see some of the studies also focused on the side effect. For domperidone, you would see there was 62 registered clinical trials, and those trials are mainly focused on the GI motility and related diseases, and also have some studies on the side effect like cardiac toxicity. For Mosapride, there are less study compared with the previous one, and there were only 26 about the GI motility-related diseases like GERD, IBS, functional dyspepsia, etc. So majority of them are used for study on the prokinetic drugs. And for Etopride, there are only 14 clinical trials at the moment. And they are mainly also on the GI motility-related diseases or situations. And as you can see here, similarly for Trimebutine, there were 7 registered clinical trials, and they are mainly on the nausea and vomiting, gastroesophageal reflux diseases, IBS, etc. So that mainly works as the dual-way regulation to relieve the GI symptoms. So the prokinetic agents are widely used, but the safety issue really draw people's attention due to some of the events like the withdrawal of some of the on-market drugs. So to focus on this one, we also look at the drug safety for those prokinetic agents. For metoclopramide, the major side effect or the adverse reaction would be the extrapyramidal symptoms. As you can see here, either by slow intravenous infusion or the bolus infusion of the metoclopramide, you would get high chance of getting the extrapyramidal symptoms like akathisia, as you can see here. So the incidence of the side effects for metoclopramide is 5 to 25%, and this is particularly true for the elderly patients. So American Geriatric Society had established Beer's criteria to warn the people who are using this medicine by saying, unless for treatment of mild gastroparesis, the use of metoclopramide as a prokinetic agent should be avoided in the elderly. It gets moderate quality of evidence, but strong recommendation from this Beer's criteria. For Cisapride, due to its fatal arrhythmia, and which was founded firstly in the 1998, and that drug was withdrawn from the U.S. market in the year 2000s, and later on, either the Europe and the other countries like Japan, also including China, has already pulled out the medicine in the market. But as the next generation of the 5-HT4 receptor antagonist, the Mosapride was developed, and the structure, the chemical structure was similar to Cisapride, but there's no report of the cardiac toxicity. And but still, for the safety reasons, and clinically, we still avoid this medicine, or together with the other medicines which can prolong the QT interval, such as flecainide. And also, this medicine for the safety is not being approved for the pregnant woman and the lactic woman and the children. So the drug will be used with caution or avoided. Etopride, which is also get very well tolerated because it's the metabolism reason, and there's also no serious adverse effect or reactions being reported, like the long QT interval or the central nervous system side effect. Therefore, the Etopride now is considered as a new generation of prokinetic agents with excellent efficacy and safety, especially for the elderly patients. For Trimebutine, it also get a higher safety profile. There's no CNS side effect reported, and also no cardiac side effect caused by 5-HT4 receptor agonist reported. There's a controversial discussion currently on the drug Domperidone due to a report from the Netherlands study, which is a population-based case control study, reported the cardiac toxicity for high dose usage of the Domperidone. Using Domperidone, especially at high dose, would increase the risk of a sudden cardiac death, will be discussed. And for this reason, the Canadian organization has a recommendation for the use of this Domperidone. So caution should be should be given when the dose of Domperidone exceeds 30 milligrams a day in the elderly over 60 years old. So this will be well documented there. And since then, there were some other organizations also had a warning or the recommendations for the caution in using this medicine, Domperidone. But what is the real-world situation in China? As Domperidone has been used widely in China, even you can get it from the OTC. So it's really important to have our own data. So for this purpose, we have conducted a study by using the medical record the electronic medical record database to look at the use of the GI medications, including the prokinetic agents, in particular for domperidone. So in this study, we have retrieved all the data from our electronic medical record database from our hospital, Xijing Hospital. We select all patients with at least one recorded prescription of such drugs like domperidone, Mosapride, Cisapride, Metoclopramide. As a control, we also look at the proton pump inhibitor or H2 receptor antagonist. This is all data from the January 1st of 2009 to December 31st of 2014. Sorry, I missed the year here. The exposure periods were defined based on the prescription duration. As we are focused on the cardiac toxicity, so the first recorded severe cardiac symptoms or events leading to the hospitalization for each patient was identified as our primary outcome. And this work was carried out in collaboration with the global epidemiology Janssen R&D. So, as this is actually a cohort of over 5 years, or actually 6 years of the medical records. So the end date for the cohorts would be defined as the first SVA observed during the follow-up, or switching to another study drug, or the study of supplement of supply plus 14 days of the usage of the medicine, and also discharge from hospitalization for inpatient exposure, and the last record in database, all the December 31st of 2014. So, from our electronic medical record database from that period of time, we have screened actually over 6 million of patients with a unique person IDs who had at least one inpatient or outpatient visit during the study period. And among these patients, there were 500,000 patients who were prescribed at least one of the study drugs during the study period. The distribution of the study drugs between the inpatient and outpatients, as you can see here, and for domperidone, almost half and half, inpatient or outpatient. But for Mosapride or Cisapride, majority of them are outpatient. And for PPI or H2 blocker are mainly the outpatient. But for Metoclopramide, it's mainly for the inpatients. Also for the age and the exposure and the domperidone users, which is our focus, as you can see, the mean age for the inpatients or outpatients is about 50, 45 to 50. And there are more patients who are at the age of less than 60 years. And for domperidone users, the daily dosage for the inpatient is about 30 milligram per day. And for the outpatients, slightly high, but almost 30. And most of the patients, no matter it's inpatient or outpatient, are using the dosage of less than 30 milligram. And this is the flow chart of selection of the inpatients. As you can see, from those 6 million patients, by those criteria we selected from each criteria of each medicine, as you can see, and eventually we got for the inpatient who are using domperidone was over 3,000, actually 3,327. Whereas the other medicines, like a PPI, is about 59,000, almost 60,000. And this is a demographic characteristic of the inpatients who are using either domperidone, Mosapride, Metoclopramide, PPI or H2 blockers. The mean age of using domperidone is about 50 years old, and the sex issue is male to female is about equal. And also, you can see the top five disease classes, as you can see here, was the patients who are using either domperidone or the other medications. You can see this is the cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, diabetes, cerebral vascular diseases, and the renal disease. Again, for the inpatients, the days of supply for the first drug with prescription, as you can see here, the majority of the patient, the mean day for the drug supply is 6 days for domperidone, and the majority of the patients, you can see, are prescribed less than 50 days, so within 2 weeks' time. Even in the follow-up period, the mean date of supply is about 11, and also most of the patients are using the domperidone or get the supply within 15 days. For outpatients, which is slightly different, you can see again, from this database, we get patients who are using domperidone, almost 2,000 patients, so 1,966. Whereas the others, like PPI here, is over 100,000 patients. And the demographic characteristic for outpatients, the mean age is 45, and the sex issue are almost equal. And also, the top 5 disease classes are cardiovascular disease, hypertension, diabetes, liver disease, and the cerebrovascular diseases for the outpatient. And the days supply for outpatient is 12 days, over 12 days, and again, mainly prescription was given in 15 days. And for follow-up period, it's longer drugs supply, almost 26 days, and also the range is longer. As you can see here. And this study, the final analysis is actually in the current undergoing, but from our preliminary analysis, we can get the conclusion. The SBA and cardiac arrest are extremely rare. Actually, there's no case of hospitalization due to this reason in our cohorts. And for domperidone, but the other kind of the cardiac toxicity is also rare in the prescribed medications for GI disorders in our study. So from this, actually I call it a preliminary or a premature study, I've learned what is the real-world evidence and what is the real-world data which we would like to focus on. I think this is also one of the major themes for this meeting. From our study and the experience, I would say that the systematically structured and evaluated real-world healthcare database are very rare in China. So I would very much like to work in this area and get to learn from many of the experts here. To improve ourselves and improve our study. And also from my experience and to my knowledge, I would say that the awareness and desire of real-world data is increasing. This is particularly in China, because the hospitals, physicians need this, and the hospital administration also need it. Our government also have the demand to have the structure. What to say to really to well manage the drug and device regulation in our insurance system. At the moment, for hospitals like in our Xijing Hospital, we have our major HIS system built up 10 or 15 years ago. The in-hospital records are there, but it's need to be completed, particularly for those outpatients data collection, and also those need integrated studies or efforts to stress this in this area. So, in summary, for the prokinetics usage in gastroenterology, I'd like to summarize here, ladies and gentlemen. For the medicines or prokinetic agents are widely or commonly used in the clinical practice, particularly for the Metoclopramide, Domperidone, the Mosapride, and the Extrapyramidal, as well as the Trimebutine. And in general, these medications or the agents are safe with the high safety profile, but the research on the prokinetic drugs is still needed at a more broader perspective. Thank you very much.